vivid versions.
The thing about Portland was that nobody questioned your coffee order. Tyler Cross could ask for a double shot of espresso over ice with exactly 2 pumps of vanilla syrup at Copper Bean Cafe, and the barista would simply nod and charge him $4.75 without commentary. In Manhattan, where he'd lived until last year, that same order would have sparked a conversation about optimal extraction temperatures or the ethics of Guatemalan bean sourcing. He appreciated the difference. Tyler worked as a software architect for Cascade Systems, a mid-sized firm that specialized in database infrastructure for medical research facilities. The job required precision, the kind where a misplaced decimal in an algorithm could corrupt years of patient data, but also creativity. He liked the balance. Every problem was a puzzle with discoverable edges, and he was exceptionally good at finding them. His apartment occupied the second floor of a converted warehouse in the Alberta Arts District. Floor-to-ceiling windows faced east, flooding the space with morning light that hit the exposed brick at angles that shifted with the seasons. He'd furnished it minimally: a charcoal sectional, a glass coffee table, bookshelves organized by subject rather than author, and a standing desk positioned to face the window. The aesthetic was deliberate, functional, clean, unconstricted. On a Thursday evening in late September, Tyler met his friend Rachel for dinner at Provisions, a farm-to-table spot that had opened 6 months earlier. Rachel worked in urban planning and possessed the rare quality of being able to discuss zoning regulations with the same enthusiasm most people reserve for gossip. "The proposal's going to fail," she said, cutting into her seared duck breast. "They're asking for a variance that would set precedent for every developer who wants to ignore height restrictions downtown." "You sound confident," Tyler observed. "I've seen the traffic studies. Their numbers don't account for weekend volume, which is deliberately misleading. The commission will catch it, and if they don't, then I'll catch it for them. That's literally why I'm there." Tyler smiled. Rachel operated with a clarity he appreciated. No performative outrage, just methodical competence. They'd met at a lecture series on sustainable development, bonded over their shared impatience with ideological posturing, and maintained a friendship built on substantive conversation rather than social ritual. "How's the project at Cascade?" Rachel asked. "We're migrating legacy systems for a cancer research database. 15 years of unstructured data that needs to be normalized without information loss. It's challenging." Translation: "You're enjoying yourself immensely." Translation: "I'm billing significant overtime." She laughed. "Still seeing that woman from the gallery opening?" Tyler considered the question. "No, that ended 3 weeks ago." "What happened?" "She wanted different things. Marriage, children, a house in the suburbs. All reasonable desires, just not mine currently." "Did she know that going in?" "I told her on the second date. She thought I'd change my mind." Rachel shook her head. The classic miscalculation. "People hear what they want to hear," Tyler said. "I try to be clear enough that ambiguity isn't possible." 2 weeks later, Tyler attended a dinner party hosted by his colleague Nathan at a townhouse in the Pearl District. 10 people occupied the long dining table, mostly Cascade employees, plus a few partners and friends. The conversation ranged from the Timbers playoff chances to the relative merits of various JavaScript frameworks. He noticed her during the salad course. A woman seated 4 chairs down on the opposite side, dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, wearing a forest green sweater that looked expensive but understated. She was listening to Nathan's girlfriend describe a documentary about urban farming, occasionally asking questions that suggested genuine interest rather than politeness. During dessert, a blackberry tart with creme fraiche, Tyler found himself seated next to her on the living room couch while Nathan distributed coffee. "I'm Tyler," he said. "Vanessa." Her handshake was firm. "You work with Nathan?" "Software architecture." "You?" I'm a freelance grant writer, mostly nonprofits focused on environmental conservation and education access. How'd you meet Nathan? His girlfriend Claire volunteers with an organization I write for. We've been friends for about a year. The conversation developed naturally. Vanessa had grown up in Eugene, studied environmental science at Berkeley, then pivoted to grant writing when she realized she preferred facilitating conservation work to conducting it. She asked about his transition from New York, seemed interested in the technical challenges of data migration, and made a sharp observation about how medical privacy regulations created perverse incentives for data siloing. Most people's eyes glaze over when I mention HIPAA compliance, Tyler said. Vanessa smiled. My father was a hospital administrator. I grew up hearing about regulatory frameworks at dinner. That explains the above-average retention, or the Stockholm Syndrome. He found himself enjoying her company. She was articulate without being verbose, asked follow-up questions that indicated she was actually listening, and possessed a dry humor that surfaced unexpectedly. When the party wound down around 11, Tyler walked her to her car, a silver Honda Civic parked 3 blocks away. This was nice, Vanessa said. It was, Tyler agreed. Would you like to continue at some time? Coffee, dinner, something without Nathan's mediocre wine selection? She laughed. His wine really is terrible, isn't it? Yes, I'd like that. They exchanged numbers. Tyler walked back to his apartment with the satisfied feeling of an evening well spent. Their first date occurred the following Saturday at a Japanese restaurant in the Hawthorne district. Vanessa ordered the omakase without hesitation, which Tyler noted approvingly. People who defer to chef's choice generally possessed either adventurous palates or well-calibrated trust in expertise. Over sashimi and sake, he learned more about her work. She was currently writing a grant proposal for a literacy program targeting immigrant communities, trying to secure funding from a foundation that historically preferred environmental projects. The challenge is framing educational access as an environmental issue, she explained. But there's actually a strong connection. Communities with higher literacy rates engage more effectively with climate policy, resource management, all of it. You're translating the mission into the donor's language, Tyler said. Exactly. Most failed grant applications fail because they're talking to themselves instead of their audience. The observation aligned with his own approach to client presentations. Success required understanding what the other party valued and demonstrating how your proposal served those values. It was strategic empathy, not manipulation but translation. They dated consistently through October and November. Dinners evolved into weekend hikes in Forest Park, matinee films at the Independent Cinema on Division Street, comfortable silences while reading in his apartment. Vanessa integrated smoothly into his routine without demanding restructuring. She kept her own schedule, maintained her own apartment across town, and didn't require constant textual reassurance or manufactured drama. You're remarkably self-sufficient, Tyler observed one evening. They were cooking dinner together. He was preparing a mushroom risotto while she assembled a salad with meticulous attention to the ratio of arugula to spinach. Is that a compliment or an accusation? Vanessa asked, not looking up from her cutting board. Observation. Most people I've dated needed more maintenance. I'm 32 years old, and I've been supporting myself since graduation. Emotional neediness isn't attractive. No, Tyler agreed. It isn't. She glanced up, met his eyes briefly, then returned to slicing cherry tomatoes. Besides, you're not exactly the smothering type. We're compatible that way. It was true. Tyler appreciated her independence, the way she could spend an entire Saturday working on grant applications without requiring his presence or attention. When they were together, the time felt chosen rather than obligatory. In December, Vanessa met more of his friends. Rachel approved immediately. They discovered a shared interest in housing policy and spent 20 minutes discussing Portland's inclusionary zoning requirements, while Tyler and Nathan debated the optimal structure for microservices architecture. "She's sharp," Rachel told him later. "And she doesn't do that thing where women pretend to be less competent than they are to make men comfortable." "I wouldn't date someone who did that thing," Tyler said. "Yes, but you've dated people who did adjacent things. This one seems self-aware." Tyler had to agree. Vanessa appeared refreshingly free of the performative behaviors that characterized so many of his previous relationships. She stated preferences directly, didn't play games with availability, and never fished for compliments through self-deprecation. The shift began in January, subtle enough that Tyler nearly missed it. They were supposed to meet Rachel and her boyfriend Chris for dinner at a Thai restaurant downtown. Tyler arrived at Vanessa's apartment at 6:30 to pick her up. She answered the door in jeans and a sweater, no coat. "I'm not feeling up for it tonight," she said. "Would you mind if we stayed in instead?" "Are you sick?" Tyler asked. "No, I don't know. Not in the mood for a group thing." He studied her expression. She looked tired, possibly, but not unwell. "We made these plans 3 days ago. Rachel's already at the restaurant. Can't you just tell her something came up?" Tyler felt the first small ping of dissonance. Vanessa had never canceled plans before, and her reasoning felt deliberately vague. But people were entitled to change their minds, and forcing unwanted social interaction served no purpose. "I'll let them know," he said, "but I should probably still go. Rachel's expecting me." Something flickered across Vanessa's face. Disappointment? Annoyance? It vanished too quickly to classify. "Of course," she said. "I understand." Tyler went to dinner. Rachel asked about Vanessa's absence, accepted the explanation without comment, and the evening proceeded normally. But the small ping of dissonance remained, a minor note that didn't quite harmonize with the established pattern. 2 weeks later, Nathan organized a game night at his townhouse. 6 people: Nathan and Claire, Tyler and Vanessa, Rachel and Chris. They played Codenames and Settlers of Catan, drank microbrews from a local brewery, engaged in the kind of competitive banter that characterized comfortable friendships. During a lull while Nathan set up the next game, Vanessa excused herself to use the bathroom. She returned 10 minutes later, quieter than before, and positioned herself slightly apart from the group. On the drive home, Tyler asked if she'd had a good time. "It was fine," Vanessa said, looking out the window. "You seem subdued." She was quiet for a moment. Then, "Did you notice how Rachel kept making little comments?" Tyler replayed the evening mentally. "What comments?" "About my job. Must be nice to work from home. I could never handle that much uncertainty, that kind of thing." It felt condescending. He frowned. Rachel had made those observations, but the tone had seemed conversational rather than judgmental. Rachel worked in government and often expressed envy of freelance flexibility, usually following it immediately with acknowledgement of the corresponding instability. "I think you might be reading intent that wasn't there," Tyler said carefully. "Or maybe you didn't notice because she wasn't directing it at you." Vanessa's voice had an edge now. It's easy to miss microaggressions when you're not the target. The term microaggressions struck Tyler as disproportionate for what had been casual conversation between people who barely knew each other. But he recognized the danger of dismissing someone's experience, particularly when he couldn't definitively prove his interpretation was correct. "If Rachel made you uncomfortable, I can talk to her," he offered. "No, don't. That would just make it worse. I'll just maybe skip the group things for a while." Tyler felt the dissonance again, louder this time. The conclusion didn't logically follow from the premise. If Rachel's comments were the problem, addressing them directly would resolve the issue. Avoiding all group gatherings was a solution wildly disproportionate to the alleged offense. But he was also aware that pushing back too hard could be interpreted as invalidation. He filed the conversation away for later analysis and changed the subject. Over the following month, the pattern clarified. Vanessa declined another dinner with Rachel and Chris, citing exhaustion. She expressed discomfort with attending Nathan's birthday party because Claire's friends don't really include me in conversations. She reinterpreted a joke Tyler's college friend made during a video call as a subtle criticism of her career choices. Tyler began tracking the incidents with the same methodical attention he applied to debugging code. Each individual occurrence could be rationalized. People had off days, social anxiety was real, not every gathering suited every personality. But the aggregate pattern revealed a structure. Vanessa was systematically creating distance between him and his social circle. The mechanisms varied but shared common features. She never forbade his attendance at events. She never explicitly criticized his friends. Instead, she expressed discomfort, felt excluded, noticed slights that Tyler hadn't registered. Each incident positioned him with a choice: attend the event and invalidate her feelings, or stay with her and preserve harmony. It was sophisticated, Tyler admitted. Overt controlling behavior could be identified and resisted. This approach operated through ambiguity and emotional appeal, making confrontation feel like insensitivity rather than boundary enforcement. In mid-March, Rachel invited Tyler to a dinner party celebrating her promotion. 8 people, mostly colleagues from urban planning, plus Tyler and Chris. Vanessa was included in the invitation. "I don't think I should go," Vanessa said when Tyler mentioned it. They were at his apartment, sharing takeout from a Vietnamese place Vanessa liked. Tyler set down his chopsticks and gave her his full attention. "Why not? Rachel doesn't actually want me there. She's inviting me out of obligation to you." "That's not true. Rachel specifically asked me to bring you, because it would be awkward not to, but I can tell she doesn't like me." Tyler considered his response carefully. "What specific actions has Rachel taken that make you feel disliked?" Vanessa's expression shifted, a brief flash of something that might have been irritation before settling back into hurt. "It's not about specific actions. It's a vibe, an energy. The way she barely makes eye contact, how she changes subjects when I'm talking." Tyler had observed Rachel's interactions with Vanessa at multiple gatherings. Rachel was consistently polite, asked appropriate questions, and included Vanessa in group conversations. If anything, Rachel was making extra effort, likely because she knew Vanessa was important to Tyler. "I don't share that perception," Tyler said. "But if you're uncomfortable, you shouldn't force yourself to attend." "I'm going, though. Rachel's one of my closest friends, and this matters to her." "Of course." Vanessa's voice went flat. "Your friends always come first." There was the false choice, finally stated explicitly. Tyler felt something crystallize inside him, a decision point reached through accumulated data rather than emotional reaction. He'd been observing, analyzing, giving the benefit of the doubt. But the pattern was now undeniable, and the appropriate response was clarity. "That's not an accurate representation," he said calmly. "I'm not choosing Rachel over you. I'm choosing to maintain relationships that existed before we met and will continue regardless of our relationship status. You're interpreting normal social obligations as betrayals. I'm just saying that it would be nice if you occasionally prioritize my comfort over your friends' expectations." You're not asking me to prioritize your comfort. You're asking me to progressively isolate myself by finding reasons to avoid every social connection I have. That's not a dynamic I'm interested in participating in. Vanessa stared at him. "That's not what I'm doing." "Let's examine the evidence," Tyler said, his tone remaining level. "In the past 2 months, you've expressed discomfort with Rachel, with Nathan and Claire, with my college friends, with my running group. You've declined 6 separate social invitations and encouraged me to do the same. Each incident has a superficially reasonable explanation, but the aggregate pattern is clear. You're creating false choices between you and everyone else in my life. I'm not interested in that dynamic. The silence that followed was substantial. Vanessa's expression cycled through several configurations: shock, anger, hurt, calculation. Tyler watched the progression with detached interest, noting how each emotion was deployed and discarded as she searched for the response that would regain control of the conversation. "I can't believe you're keeping score like that," she finally said. "Tracking everything I say like it's evidence in a trial. That's not what relationships are supposed to be. Relationships are supposed to be built on honesty and mutual respect for autonomy. When I notice a pattern that contradicts those principles, I address it. That's what I'm doing now. By accusing me of trying to isolate you, that's a serious allegation, Tyler. It's an observation based on repeated behavior. You're welcome to provide an alternative explanation for why every social connection I have suddenly generates discomfort for you." Vanessa stood abruptly. "I don't have to defend my feelings to you. If being around your friends makes me uncomfortable, that's valid. The fact that you'd rather psychoanalyze me than support me tells me everything I need to know about your priorities. Support and enabling aren't the same thing. I'm happy to address genuine problems. If Rachel were actually being hostile, I'd handle it. But you're not identifying genuine problems. You're manufacturing conflicts to justify isolation. That's controlling behavior, and I won't participate in it." "You're calling me controlling?" Her voice rose. "I'm not the one who's demanding you change or give me ultimatums." "You're right," Tyler said. "You're not demanding change. You're attempting to achieve it through accumulated guilt and false equivalencies. The method is subtler, but the objective is the same." Vanessa grabbed her purse from the couch. "I'm not staying here to be analyzed like one of your database problems. When you're ready to actually listen to my feelings instead of dismissing them as manipulation, call me." She left, the door closing with controlled force, not quite a slam, but emphatic enough to communicate anger. Tyler remained on the couch, finishing his pho while processing the conversation. He felt no particular emotional turmoil, no anger, no regret, no impulse to chase after her with apologies. The situation had required addressing, he'd addressed it clearly, and now Vanessa would make whatever choice she made. His phone buzzed 40 minutes later. A text from Vanessa. "I'm sorry. You're right that I've been struggling with social situations lately. Can we talk about this more calmly?" Tyler read the message twice, analyzing the language. The apology was nonspecific. Sorry for what, exactly? The admission of struggling with social situations reframed controlling behavior as personal difficulty requiring sympathy. The request to talk more calmly implied his previous approach had been aggressive, when in fact he'd been entirely composed. It was a sophisticated attempt at reasserting the narrative. She was the victim of mysterious social anxiety. He was the insensitive partner who'd responded with clinical coldness, and reconciliation required his accommodation of her needs. He typed a response. "I appreciate the apology, but the core issue remains unaddressed. I need a partner who supports my existing relationships rather than systematically undermining them. That's not negotiable for me." The reply came quickly. "I'm not asking you to give up your friends. I just need you to be more aware of how group dynamics affect me." Tyler read the message, recognized the deflection, and made his decision. He called her. She answered on the second ring. "Hey," Vanessa said, her voice cautious. "I've been thinking about this," Tyler said, "and I don't think we're compatible long-term. You need someone who's willing to reshape their social life around your comfort, and I need someone who respects my autonomy. Those requirements are mutually exclusive, A pause. You're breaking up with me over this? I'm ending a relationship that's developing unhealthy patterns. I wish you well, Vanessa. I genuinely do. But I'm not interested in continuing this dynamic. Tyler, wait. Can we at least talk about this in person? You owe me that much. I don't think an in-person conversation would change the analysis. I've been clear about my boundaries, and you've been clear that you find them problematic. That's incompatibility, not something requiring further negotiation. So you're just done? After 6 months, you're just cutting me off? I'm ending a relationship that isn't working. That's different from cutting you off. I'll return your things, you can return mine, and we both move forward. This is insane, Vanessa said, her voice hardening. You're throwing away what we have because I had legitimate feelings about your friends? Do you hear how crazy that sounds? I hear how you're characterizing it, Tyler said calmly. My characterization is that I'm declining to participate in a relationship structure that requires me to progressively isolate myself. We can disagree about the interpretation, but the outcome remains the same. Unbelievable. Rachel was right about you. You're an emotionless robot who treats people like lines of code. The comment was interesting. When did Rachel say that? A pause, just slightly too long. She didn't, but she was obviously thinking it, the way she looked at you. Tyler smiled, though Vanessa couldn't see it. The lie was revealing, a last attempt at creating division between him and Rachel, even now. The desperation of it confirmed he'd made the right decision. I'm going to go, Tyler said. Take care of yourself, Vanessa. He ended the call before she could respond. The following day, Tyler texted Rachel, Vanessa and I broke up. Thought you should know before the dinner party. Feel free to uninvite her if that makes things simpler. Rachel called immediately. What happened? Incompatibility. She wanted me to progressively minimize contact with my social circle. I declined. Jesus. I wondered if something was going on. She's been weird the last few times we've all hung out. Weird how? Performatively uncomfortable. Like she was trying to broadcast that she didn't fit in, but in a way that made everyone else responsible for fixing it. Tyler nodded, though Rachel couldn't see him. That tracks with my observation. Are you okay? I'm fine. The relationship had run its course. Better to end it now than let the pattern entrench further. Look at you, being emotionally healthy and setting boundaries. I'm so proud. Tyler laughed. Your sarcasm is noted. I'm actually not being sarcastic. Most people would have tried to make it work for another 6 months and ended up miserable. You identified the problem and addressed it. That's growth. After they hung up, Tyler sat at his desk and looked out at the city. Rain was starting, the kind of fine mist Portland specialized in. He felt neither triumphant nor sad, just clear. The situation had required intervention. He'd intervened, and now he could return to the life he'd deliberately constructed. His phone buzzed with a final text from Vanessa. You'll regret this. You're going to end up alone because you can't handle actual intimacy. Tyler considered the message clinically. It attempted to plant doubt through prophecy, suggesting his decision would lead to isolation, implying that actual intimacy required accepting controlling behavior. It was a parting attempt at manipulation, no more or less. He deleted the message without responding. That Saturday, Tyler attended Rachel's dinner party. 8 people gathered around a table in her apartment, drinking wine and celebrating her promotion. The conversation ranged from transportation policy to the relative merits of various hiking trails in the Columbia River Gorge. Nathan asked about Vanessa's absence. Tyler provided a brief explanation. We broke up. Turned out we wanted different things from a relationship. Sorry to hear that, man, Nathan said. Don't be. It was the right call. Rachel raised her glass. To Tyler, who has finally learned that being alone is better than being with someone who makes you smaller. I'll drink to that, Chris said. They did. Later, while helping Rachel clean up in the kitchen, Tyler mentioned the comment Vanessa had attributed to her. She said, "You called me an emotionless robot?" Rachel looked genuinely offended. "That's absurd. You're one of the most emotionally intelligent people I know. You just don't perform emotions theatrically, which insecure people sometimes interpret as absence of feeling." That was my assessment as well. "She was threatened by our friendship," Rachel said. "Women like that always are. They can't imagine that men and women can have substantive relationships that aren't romantic, so they interpret normal friendship as competition." The irony is that her attempts to create distance made the breakup easier. If she just accepted my friendships as neutral facts, we might have lasted longer. But then she wouldn't have been who she is. The controlling thing was always going to surface eventually. Tyler dried a wine glass, considering. "You're probably right." 3 weeks later, Tyler went on a first date with someone new, a data scientist named Amy who worked for an environmental research nonprofit. They met at a coffee shop and talked for 2 hours about statistical modeling and the challenges of communicating scientific findings to policymakers. At the end, Amy said, "This was great. I'd like to do it again." "So would I," Tyler said. "Fair warning, though, I have a pretty active social life. Friends, running groups, regular commitments. That's not negotiable for me." Amy looked mildly confused. "Why would that be negotiable? I have my own friends. I wasn't planning to abandon them." "You'd be surprised how often that becomes an issue. Then you've been dating the wrong people." She smiled. "Lucky for you, I'm not the wrong people." Tyler returned the smile. "We'll see." They scheduled a second date. Tyler walked back to his apartment through the spring evening, feeling neither optimistic nor pessimistic about the new possibility. Relationships were puzzles like anything else. They either fit together or they didn't, and forcing incompatible pieces only damaged both of them. He'd learned to recognize the shape of what he needed. Partnership without possession, intimacy without dependence, connection without constraint. It wasn't complicated, really. Most people just made it that way. Tyler made it home as the sun set behind the West Hills, painting the clouds in shades of orange and gold. He stood at his window for a moment, appreciating the geometry of the light, then turned to his computer and the elegantly structured problems waiting there. Some puzzles were worth solving. Others, you just walked away from. He'd finally learned the difference.
Thanks for listening.